Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Q Live. So good to have you. My name is Bill Selleck, pronounced he, him. I am Director of Technology at Hillbrook School in Los Gatos, California. And we are going to talk podcasting. And not just with anyone. We're going to talk, I'm pointing the wrong direction. We're going to talk with Will. Will, how are you? So good to have you on the show.
Thanks, Bill, bring me in. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I been wanting to be a part of this Q thing, so thank you for bringing me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're a part of our Meet the Podcasters session. There's our little animated GIF. It looks great on Twitter and a little awkward right now. Tell us a little bit about your podcast, about what you do.
Well, my podcast, the Dr. Will Show podcast, started out 7 years ago, and it was started out because I'm doing consulting, and I had reached out to Eric Schenniger, and I was like, "Yo, homie, I'm trying to grow like you grow. What do I need to do?" And so he said, "You need to create content." And I tried to start blogging, but I was like, there was no way for me to do this on a consistent basis. And prior to me becoming a district instructional technologist, I was actually the chief social strategist for a career development company where, and part of my work, I created a YouTube show. And I enjoyed it. So I said, well, let me just start a podcast. And so that's how that started out. And I originally did, I guess, the typical educator show where, I brought in people to talk about, Schoology and G Suite and Google Classroom and integrating technology in the classroom. And then after about 3 years of doing that, I was just bored. I was like, I need to do something else. This needs to be fresh. And I had always had a fondness for personal development and entrepreneurship. And at that point, I decided I'm done. I'm going to make this pivot. And hence the new birth of what my show looks like now.
Yeah, awesome. So tell us a little bit about that. And you're pretty prolific. I have my own podcast that's been going on for more than 10 years, but I'm maybe an episode a month. And you're like, what's your schedule? Like it's sometimes it's 2 a week.
Yeah. I do release two episodes a week. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So tell us a little bit, maybe a favorite episode, favorite guest. It's a great show. If you've not checked it out, by the way, be sure and check it out.
Well, thank you. I like having, again, these shows about educators who come on, who talk about either their book, they talk about their consulting company that they've created, or they've created a course that they're selling, or they've created curriculum products that they're selling. I've even had people come on, like I have a TPT, which I know for some people it's kind of like, ooh, TPT. But, TPT is huge. They even have their own conference. So I've had them talk about how they've created their store and what does that look like. And I've had, and I like to bring on entrepreneurs who like they do this thing. So I've had people who are, an executive at Google, but have their side hustle that they're doing. And I really enjoy bringing on the money people, like certified financial planners, where we can talk about insurance, we can talk about investing, we can talk about sort of saving and multiple streams of income, and really how do you plan your money to live the lifestyle that you want. Which for us as educators, most people aren't taught how to deal with money anyway. But as an educator, you can't go to your boss, right? You can't go to HR and say, you saw that positive review that I got on my valuation. I want some more money next year.
Yeah, that doesn't.
Yeah, we can't do that, right? And so our money is pretty finite, unless you get another position that has a bump in salary or whatever. So what do you do when your money is finite? In addition to creating multiple streams of income, you also need to make sure that you are a steward of the money that you're bringing in. So I like bringing in people that can talk about, okay, save this way. These are outlets for investing. This is how you can kind of look at your money in a different way and have a different relationship with it, so that it's not about getting freaked out of the idea of a budget, or restricting yourself of, I can't have this Starbucks coffee, because if I do that, what will happen down the line. So I like just having all of those conversations.
Yeah, I love that. And for the longest time, Will, I struggled to see how finance fit in it, like a K-12 education, how you would have those conversations with students. And actually, on one of our school's podcasts, the Center for Teaching Excellence, one of my colleagues, her name's Annie Makla, she's the founding director of the Scott Center for Social Entrepreneurship. One of the pillars of social entrepreneurship is finance. And so I remember so vividly a few years ago on an episode, just like, why are we talking about finance and like kindergartners? Like, are we talking financial planner? And she introduced me to the 6 types of capital, right? And I had to Google it. I don't have this memorized, but there's financial capital that you were just talking about, manufacturing capital, human capital, social capital, intellectual capital, and natural capital. And the one thing that really resonated with me was looking at social capital, right? So it's choosing how I spend my time and how I engage on social media, right? And so like this could be a great example of that, like choosing to be a part of Q Live and sharing out, the idea around entrepreneurship, around finance, and just making that be a bit more of a spotlight on social media. Another thing that we talk a lot about is that your dollar is a vote. And so as we look at finding and supporting sustainable companies, right, every time you buy a product, or you encourage, for younger kids, encourage your parents to buy this or to not buy this, that's finances also, right? So it becomes, after those conversations with Annie, it's like, oh my gosh, like not only do I make decisions every day around how I spend my capital, but my kids, my youngest is a first grader, they can have a say around what we buy or what we don't buy, and who we are or are not supporting. And even just giving kids, $5 to spend, knowing that, at its most basic level, yeah, here's $1, spend it, here's $5, spend it, but also, what company you're supporting, right? And I love that you do a deep dive into that.
Yeah, it's been interesting. Like I said, for some people, yeah, I'm getting, more. I guess it's becoming more commonplace, and more people are embracing the show. But when I first rolled it out, there were people who were like, "Wow!" And I actually had a fellow educational a podcaster sort of push back on the show, and push back on the things that I talk about, about getting your coin. And I was like, it's so important, because no one becomes an educator to drive a Bugatti, right? I mean, it never crosses our minds. But I never became an educator to live off baloney either,
Right.
And so understanding how all of this comes into to play, and even if you're not going to become an entrepreneur as an educator, but to have that entrepreneurial mindset of, how do you live your life? How do you teach your students? How do you approach your work and your craft? Just that the simple idea of being agile, and, being willing to take those risks, and not being afraid to try new things. I mean, those are qualities I think all educators should embrace. And then, of course, yes, you mentioned earlier the whole financial piece. I'm all in on K through 12, actually teaching financial literacy and entrepreneurship, so that students are well informed about decision making, and how everything actually comes into play. Just a little tangent side note. About 8 months ago, we had to get a new roof put on our house, and I remember writing the first check to the roofer, and he even commented. He said, "Hey, I worked with a younger couple, and they didn't know how to write a check, right? Because they're young, and they're
Yeah.
probably living off the swipe."
Yeah.
And I just happen to be 48, so I'm used to. I've written checks before, so
Sure. Sure.
the whole idea of how some people do sort of their existence is real cashless, and they don't do the checks, they don't do X, Y, and Z. But
Yeah.
that is a skill. It's still a skill that people need to have as well, in students. So I'm just really all in on this, and I'm hoping that I can play some sort of small role with my podcast and getting people really excited about what their lives can look like.
Awesome. I love that so much. So, Will, share with us, how can we connect with you? I'm going to drop your URL in there. Is that the best place for people to find you?
When you hit me up on Twitter at I am Dr. Will, that's where I share links to things and share my podcast and my ideas about financial literacy and online learning and stuff like that. But definitely, let's connect and share ideas.
Awesome. Well, so excited to have you on the show. For those of you that have not connected with other podcasters, there's all kinds of amazing podcasters on Meet the Podcasters that'll be available on the recording all the way through December 31st. Fall Q through 2022. Ooh, can hide behind that GIF. Will, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you all for joining us